What's going on, guys? Vulkan here, and today we're jumping back into Space Punks, the top-down looter shooter from Flying Wild Hogs. Now, I covered this game a while back when it first entered early access last year. The biggest issue I had with the game was last time I played, it just didn't have a lot of stuff to do. There was a huge lack of content, which is a typical early access issue, right? They're kind of testing the foundation and the core gameplay loop, and that was a blast. I really enjoyed what Space Punks had brought to the table. The core of the game was fun. There just wasn't a lot to do with the core of the game. So recently, they entered open beta, and I mean recently, like 4 days ago. And according to their website, they also added quite a bit in terms of content and stuff to do. So I decided, you know what, it's time to jump back in and see if it's worth playing in 2022. But before we get into that, I did want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I'll have a message from them later on. And if you're someone who's looking to make a website or start an online business, you'll definitely want to check this out because I can save you a little bit of money to get started. So when it comes to Space Punks, honestly guys, I wouldn't blame you if you had no idea what this game is. It hasn't been very prominent in any marketing campaigns. I haven't seen or heard anyone really talking about it up until very recently. So you might be wondering, what is this game? Well, like I said at the beginning, this is an isometric looter shooter. You play as kind of one of 4 heroes. Each one has their own skills, their own gameplay style, and definitely a unique personality. So first up, you have Duke, who's the kind of egotistical center of attention. He loves big explosions, all eyes on him. It's basically Showtime Duke, right? Then comes Eris. Eris is this girl who's corrupted by the nanobot plague, which seems like it would be a horrible thing, but it actually helped her overcome a sickness that she had, and now she uses those extra nanobots to slice and dice enemies. Then next up is Bob. Bob is the spectacle-wearing grasshopper who is hyper-intelligent and loves to come up with new gadgets to use. That way he can kill things more efficiently. And then lastly is Finn, the hog. This guy is best friends with Duke, and like him, he loves explosions and force fields. So if you like to be tanky, Finn is perfect. Now, because this game is free to play, you do get to choose one hero to start off with, and then over time, you're going to earn enough currency to purchase another hero, and you're going to continue doing this until you have all 4. So make sure to pick the one that you really jive with right at the start. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck playing a hero that you don't really care about for the first few hours of the game. So I mentioned looter shooter at the very beginning, which obviously means loot. So what does loot look like in Space Punks? And I'm so glad you guys asked, because loot in Space Punks isn't exactly over the top, right? You have all these different weapons, you have 5 slots you can interact with and swap loot out of. And while there isn't anything really kind of crazy that I've discovered so far, it's simple and approachable, which makes the game a little bit more appealing to wider sets of audiences. So let's break this stuff down, all right? So I've been able to unlock a handful of starting weapons and starting gear through my first few missions. Now they also have a crafting system in case you really need to like upgrade a specific slot. We'll talk about that more shortly because it is pretty fleshed out. They just overhauled it and it's way better compared to the previous iteration. So the gear itself comes in 5 different flavors. You have your ranged weapon, which is like a gun or a laser cannon, something similar, flamethrower if you like those. You have your melee weapon, just in case you need to get up close and personal with something. These are things like swords, hammers, fist weapons. You have trinkets. These increase your secondary stats, things like movement speed, critical chance, cooldown reduction. Your med belt, which provides health bonuses and overall health and like vitality. Then you have your shield, which gives you a shield, and these vary in recharge delay, recharge rate, and capacity. These really remind me of like Borderlands and that whole shield system. So nothing too over the top here, but it's very, like I said, approachable. You can understand it and you don't really need to dive too deep into it at the beginning to understand what each slot does. Now, all of these items, they come in different rarities. And as you get higher up, you're going to start to see some with different effects that are going to help define your build. And you might be wondering, where do you get all of these different pieces of gear? Well, the primary source for all of these items comes from completing missions and looting chests. So Space Punks has a central hub called the Devil's Gambit. And then from here, you can launch missions to visit different maps, different planets, complete objectives. And then as you do that, you're going to finish missions. Now, scattered throughout the maps are chests, and these contain different currencies, health refills, and items. So naturally, you want to make sure that you loot all of these whenever you see them, because this is going to be the best and most free way to get upgrades for your character. But the thing is, simple missions aren't the only thing that you're going to see in Space Punks. You also have something called Shooting Stars, which is sort of this like Mario Party style game show. and you get to play against other players, which is really cool. So you kind of complete these like wacky objectives, right? Things like whoever can kill the most enemies but not take damage, whoever can kill the most enemies from long range, whoever can grab the most of these items and then stack them up in these certain drop zones. So it's really fun. It creates this sort of fun competitive environment. You can go down too. So if you die to the enemies, you'll enter your downed state, and at that point in time you're kind of out of the race unless somebody wants to be super generous and then revive you and bring you back up, which then again, they're helping a competitor. Really, do they want to do that? Probably not. Usually they'll do that towards the end of the round, but it's really fun, right? It takes a lot of the tension out of it, and it's just something a little bit more lighthearted to jump in. You get good rewards out of it as well for the crafting system, so we'll talk about that here in a moment, but it's not all kind of simple missions or dailies or, busy work per se as you're trying to level up your character. Now, you also have something else called the Crack. Now, the Crack is a brand new end game mode. I haven't gotten to play that quite yet, but really, guys, if I'm being honest, this is the main reason I jumped back into the game. I saw that they added a kind of formal end game experience for Space Punks, and I decided, you know what, I really want to see what that experience looks like. So I've started a new character, and I'm working my way towards that right now. You have to be hero level 15, which requires a lot of grinding and kind of completing missions and earning fame, which will then allow you to progress through your hero levels. So it's a whole thing, but just know you can't do it right out of the gate. It's going to be something you're going to have to work towards. So back to the whole gearing situation. So we talked about how you can get it from different missions and different drops that way, but if you have horrible luck and you just cannot get a new trinket or you just cannot get a new shield, you can also try the crafting system like I mentioned earlier. Now, this is a brand new overhaul to their previous system, and it feels much, much, much better. You start out with a couple of blueprints that you can upgrade or you can craft. Now, upgrading a blueprint increases the item level of that piece of gear, but it also unlocks additional crafting slots, and you can use these to kind of fully customize your weapon. You have things like bits, mods, batteries, software, all of which come with different stats and effects that you can add to the crafted item to get something that you truly want for your character. So you can sort of control the RNG a little bit more. Otherwise, if you just say, leave it all blank, go full send, you're going to get a truly randomized piece of gear. So this whole type of freedom with the crafting system, I love, right? It was a huge selling point for me in another looter shooter called Outriders. So seeing a similar system has me really excited for the possibilities and the way they're going to expand this in the future. Okay, so now that we've covered the heroes, the crafting, the missions, there's one last thing I do want to cover before we get into what the roadmap for Space Punks looks like in 2022, because there is a lot of stuff on this and I think we really need to discuss it. And that's the overhauled talent trees. So these talent trees look much better. So before, Space Punks had this sort of like big kind of spaghetti mess that they called talents, and it never really caught on. It didn't look great. It wasn't visually appealing. It was more confusing than anything. So now they have this really nice trio of talent trees, and each one has a focus area. So you have the survivor tree, which helps you, survive. You have things like picking up items, restores your health, or you can pop an emergency shield if you drop below a certain health threshold. So things that are going to help you towards end game. Then you have the soldier's path. This one's all about killing stuff. So you're going to see increases to ranged and melee damage, as well as critical chance, things like that. And then the last tree is the scavenger's path. Now the scavenger's path has a ton of utility, things like increased movement speed, stamina, weapon range, increasing your magazine size. So this is one that you definitely want to dive into at least a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to be hamstringing yourself, and it's just not a great thing to avoid, I would say. So overall, like I said, this feels much better than their previous iteration. It just feels more complete, less like an alpha build or a beta build, which is ironically is open beta. So kudos to them for kind of taking the feedback, running with it, and not just, holding their ground and saying, no, we really like it the way it is. So good on them. Now, on the same screen, you also have something called your hero progress screen, which is basically a bar that shows when you unlock new and upgraded skills. Really, there isn't anything crazy here. Once you hit a certain level, you need to go back into this bar, back into the screen, click on the skill to unlock it. It adds it to your bar, and you're off to the races. So overall, guys, Space Punks gives you a lot of things to tinker with to help build your hero. You have the gear side of things, which helps you kind of min-max what you're going to do on the battlefield, and then you have the talent trees to help flesh out what type of, Bob, Finn, Eris, or Duke that you truly want to be. So that's a high overview of Space Punks and everything that you're going to see within the first few hours of the game. But like I said, we have a ton of new stuff coming this year, and I want to break that down because I know that some of you will be very interested in a couple of these. But before we do that, I did want to chat a little bit about Squarespace. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that today's content was being sponsored by Squarespace. So I really wanted to take a moment to talk about all of the cool things you can do with their platform. So as you all know, I'm always looking for different ways that I can present my content to make the whole kind of viewing experience as easy as possible for you guys. So with Squarespace, I have quite a few different ways to do this, and it's super easy to set up. And I actually used Squarespace for my own business a few years ago, and it was a really, really painless process. So you can get started by heading out to squarespace.com/Vulkan to save 10% when you sign up. Now from there, you can select from tons of different templates. That way you can hit the ground running. Or if you're someone who really likes to be in the process, you can build it yourself from the ground up by choosing the blank template. That way you can start from scratch. So I'm going to give you all a kind of live look at how my website is coming along. So far, I have a video wall, which is a really cool feature. I'm able to embed all of my videos directly into the web page. That way, you guys just have to click, watch, and then can move on to the next one. This creates a more kind of one-stop shop experience for everyone. But one of the coolest things that I found was the upcoming events page. So this lets me add date and time events. That way I can provide a game release calendar. That way it keeps everyone updated on what games are coming out and when. That way you can plan ahead if you want to take any days off. And you also know exactly what I'm covering on the channel ahead of time. Now, lastly, there is a way to sell on-demand videos or classes. So if you're someone who really wants to get into teaching or maybe wants to sell classes or workout videos, this is a really great way to do that. You can show off a little bit of the video, you can add a description, and then you can let viewers pick and choose which ones they want to purchase. It's a great way for those of us who want to sell services, but also want to expand their reach. So all of this is just the beginning, right? There are lots of other things in Squarespace that I'm going to check out and discover as well. But if you want to learn more, head out to squarespace.com for a free trial. And then once you're ready to dive in, go to squarespace.com/Vulkan to save 10% on your first website purchase. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the video. So now that we're back, we want to talk about this roadmap. So the first thing they mentioned is a brand new planet called Spore. Now this is a horribly toxic place, and apparently that's all we know. Lots of green. So I'm imagining that we're going to get a new set of maps, new enemies, maybe new themed weapons that come along with it. But for now, we're just going to have to wait and see. But it's nice to see them adding a whole new planet for us to explore. Now, they also confirmed that they're working on a new system to generate enemies with random buffs to help make combat a little bit more diverse and interesting. So really kind of where my mind immediately goes is to the elite groups from like action RPGs, right? You have things like lava links, AoE, increased speed, damage. Either way, I am here for it, and I think it's going to make combat much better. Naturally, they confirmed that we will be seeing more gun skills and gear with each patch. So in a game like this, we can never have too few of those things. You constantly need to be adding something for people to either chase after. We talk about the carrot and the stick, and you can't have one without the other, or else it's going to be a dead patch. Now, we also got confirmation that they're going to be putting in a new progression system to progress through, which is interesting. A lot of really kind of vague details here, but it's nice to know that this is on the list of things they're working on. The progression systems they have in the game right now will suffice for an open beta, but as you get deeper into the game or you get closer to launch, I think having an overarching account progression system is going to be something that people will want and they'll crave. Now, let's get to the thing that I think most people are going to be curious to see. They're adding a battle pass and a seasonal shop to help fund the game, since the game will be free to play. Now, what does this mean? We don't truly know. We don't know if this is going to be like Lost Ark's Battle Pass, where you have free, premium, and super premium. We don't know if this is going to be like a season pass in Destiny. We don't really know what this is going to look like. Hopefully they decide to go like the Halo Infinite route, and it's just one big battle pass that's always there, and it's just persistent throughout whatever seasons they want to do. I'm fingers crossed because I feel like that's a better iteration than the whole kind of fear of missing out thing that developers like to take advantage of these days. But either way, this is something that is coming. Now, we can see the seasonal shop, and we can see the categories that come with that. They're all empty, so we can't see what's actually going to be sold, but we can see that there will have things like skins and emotes that you'll be able to purchase, because emoting, I'm assuming, is going to be a big part of this game. It's a dedicated thing that's always on your screen, so that is going to be something that hopefully, you know, will help kind of raise some money for the game. Now, the last thing that I think lots of people are going to be very happy to hear about is that they will be launching the console version of Space Punks this year. So we finally have another platform to play this game on besides the Epic Game Store, which will definitely help get the name out there, but it'll also help bring those people along that don't have a gaming PC that can't play this game. You know, I hope more games decide to make the leap to console, because right now we're at a point where consoles are pretty powerful, and we'll be able to play a lot of stuff that we get to play on PC. So glad to see Space Punks making that jump. So all in all, guys, this is just one big Space Punks update video, but I want to hear from you guys. What do you all think? Does it look interesting? Have you played it before? Do you want to come back and play it after they've added all of this stuff? I want to hear from you. So let's get talking in the comments section below. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been Vulkan, and I will talk to you guys next time.